I can hear myself, so it works. Hey, thank you everyone for having me here. It's a true joy. My name is Ali. I'm a director of product at Bolt. I prefer being called Juju, and now because we're going to become friends, so if you meet me later, just call me Juju. I'm going to talk about how to scale product teams and how do you go from 0 to, 100x and make sure you don't lose efficiency and the agility you have as a startup. But before I do that, I'm going to talk about my favorite topic, which is me. So let's get to know me a little bit. That's me. There's supposed to be a flag there. I'm from Pakistan. Let's assume the flag is still there. That's me as a baby. If you look at it carefully, there's a Mickey Mouse ear missing. There are teeth marks around it, but we're not sure if ever I ate it or not. Fast forward a couple of years, I graduated from Lahore University of Management Sciences, which is a premier business school in Pakistan. Those are my mom and dad. It's the only graduation photo I have, because I was late to my own graduation. A couple of weeks later, as a fresh-faced, bright-eyed 22-year-old, I sit on a plane, and I go to Dubai. That's supposed to be UAE's flag, but emojis are failing me. And I start my product career at this company, which is a fat ninja, inspired by Apple a little bit. The company is called Pero. They're an e-commerce play, but they're a platform, essentially, so they don't keep their own inventory. They just provide a platform for other people to sell. I'm their first product and marketing hire. I start building a team, go from 1 to 10 people. A couple of years later, go on a vacation to Rome, get a call from my team saying, hey, the company's been sold. At first, I thought it was a joke. Find out in a couple of minutes it's not a joke. Come back to Dubai to find out we've been acqui-hired by a new e-commerce, well-funded startup called Noon. They're a general e-commerce play, so they have their own inventory, they have their warehouses, etc. Again, I'm the first product manager. My job is to kind of launch everything in the next 3 months. I don't know who came up with the deadline, but that's what it is. So I build a seller place, I build a consumer side, apps, warehouse management systems, logistics systems, and we go live. They suck, but they work, right? And if working 16 hours wasn't enough, a day during that time period, I take it to the next level, kind of get married at that point. What you can't see is my wife somewhere in the middle. Shout out to her, because I objectively don't think I was a nice person during that time period. I wasn't present. She pulls this out of a hat. We get married. We recently celebrated our 5 years. Thank you. We keep moving. The company keeps growing. We launch a few second business lines. We launch a fashion play. That's the little moment dancing. It's supposed to be fashion. And then we launch a fresh grocery play. We go from being me to being about 45 people in product, so product managers, designers, analysts, and me being head of product. We go back to this for some reason, but we also become the biggest marketplace player or e-commerce player in the region, and we kind of beat the best player that's out there. You can guess who they were, right? Then the next best thing, or the best thing happens in my life. I adopt a dog. My wife's not here. Don't tell her, but I stand by my statement forever. Then in January of 2021, I sit on a plane in 22 degrees in winters in Dubai, fly over to Tallinn in minus 17, and start my career at Bolt. And I've been there almost 2 years now. I look after rides, and I look after the business vertical. Now that we know me a little bit, let's get back to the topic. I swear it should get there. Before we kind of talk about how to scale teams, we should kind of get to a point of, okay, but what is a different stage of product and what are they supposed to do? Because I like emojis and GIFs, so I'm going to try to communicate everything in GIFs. This is the stage 1. I call it 0 to survival. Professionally, it's called 0 to 1. At this point, you have a toy train. That's your product manager. He or she is hoping that they can lay the tracks in the right place at the right time. And if they miss, the company is going to die, or the train is going to flip over. Fun job, fun job. Then you have the next stage. I call it 1 to, hey, we should expand, this works, or 1 to 100. You have a train, it has a track, it has customers, it works more often than not, but your product manager still sits in the front, and every now and then has to clear the tracks or figure out the tracks are broken, but more often than not, it's there. Then you have the last stage, 100 to profitability, or 100 to 100x. At this point, you have a train. Everybody loves the train. It has customers coming in. It's the talk of town. Every now and then it flies. And if you do well, I'm pretty sure you'll have a Netflix show on you. So now that we're clear on what the stages of product are, let's go to the next point. What is the product team supposed to do at each stage? Stage number 1, or survival stage, the job of a product manager is define the product space. So how big is the area you're tackling? How much it will scale in 5 years? Do you have a solution? What could be the solution? What's the product market fit for it? Make sure it pays, like make sure you can have customers and they're willing to pay for it. And if you're lucky and if you have more than one product manager, you'll structure the team kind of in like platform. So I'll explain what that means. If you have just one-sided play in a marketplace, so if you're just consumer-focused, you'll have an app product manager and a web product manager. If you have a two-sided marketplace, you'll have one product manager who focuses on supply, one product manager who focuses on demand. I'll use my favorite marketplace here, or one of my favorite marketplaces here as an example, Airbnb. So two guys come up with I'm gonna take creative license with their story, by the way. So two guys come up with this amazing idea that, hey man, we can like rent out our own space, rent 3 air mattresses, put them on rent, put the place on rent, get 3 customers, or 2 or 3 customers, and they're like, holy shit, am I allowed to swear? Let's pretend I am. Holy shit, this is a $1 billion industry. Come up with this awesome idea, launch a website, wait for their next customers, nobody comes. Realize they have a product market fit, people don't want to rent places, they also want to see the place, they also want to see how nice it is. They realize, okay, let's get a photographer. They get a photographer, make sure every listing has nice photos taken of it, and the rest is kind of history. At stage number 2, or we should expand stage, what the job of your product team is to start making sure there are customers coming in, you're growing. Then you're like, hey, we work in 1 market or 2 markets, why don't we go to 10 markets? Why don't we go global? And you also want to make sure the team is focusing on the right metrics. In my opinion, the right metrics at this point are revenue, cost of acquisition, conversion rate, and certain high-level metrics. You'll also face this most probably challenge at this point, which is that should we build this ourselves, or could we buy a solution? I'll give you an example. Say you have a massive CS team. You're always going to have this sort, Zendesk versus something internally. At this point, how you structure your team, you'll structure them based on user journeys. So let's say you have 2 PMs on the demand side. You'll have 1 PM focus on growth, 1 PM focus on retention. Going back to our example of Airbnb, they start raising money, they start expanding, they even open an office in Dublin, so they're going global. And then they have the same problem of buy versus build. They realize I'm gonna simplify this, but their data workflows are not working. They build something that if you have data engineers or data scientists or data analysts here should be very familiar with. They build Apache Airflow, which is something that is now open sourced for their own company because nobody could handle their data workflows. Third stage, 100 to profitability. So now you have a big team. What should their focus areas be? Some part of the team should focus on getting new business lines because you're catering to one aspect of the customer problem. Could you cater to 10 more? Could you get more customers, more revenue? Could you make acquisitions? Do you need to launch it yourself? Could you buy a small player or a competitor? You start managing the P&L a lot more effectively. What it means is you start looking at not just growth, revenue, and cost of acquisition. You start looking at the costs. You want to make sure as economies of scale hit, your costs are being minimized. But even at this point, you want to make sure you're agile. Force majeure might happen. Things might change. Let's look at the last 2 or 3 or 4 years. COVID, wars, we've faced a lot. So you always want to keep your team a little bit like you might move overnight. How's the team structured here? I call it optimization and exploration. 80-20, it's not the Pareto rule, it's just the division. Most of your team will be optimizing on main KPIs, so you'll have somebody focus on cost of acquisition, somebody focus on cost of CS, somebody focus on cost of OPEX, so on and so forth. And then you'll have a leanish team around, I call them the creator team or the exploration team. They'll be trying to figure out their own internal 0 to 1s. Going back to our friends again. So they start going big. They're about $10 billion worth. They're going faster and faster. They launch Airbnb Plus, which is like a host side offering that they do for like main hosts. They also start launching experiences, which is they realize that, we cater to tourists coming in, but we never cater to what they actually do when they're in. So, big space. We should start doing something there. COVID hits. It's a bit unfortunate. They let go of people as well. But because they're agile, they take experiences online. Last I checked, I think experiences hold me accountable and honest here, but I think experiences make up about 25 to 35% of their revenue. So now that we know what a product team is supposed to do, how do you hire them, and more importantly, how do you retain them? I'm gonna tell you what the bold process is, what we follow. So, if you like it, we have our talent partners in the room. They can put their hands up and you can reach out to them or me later as well. So first step, if you're an early team, you'll always have this fear that, oh my God, I'm gonna hire the next few people. I need to make sure they understand how the company works. I need to make sure they follow the processes. Don't worry about it. Focus on great people. They'll figure out the right processes themselves. If you get great people, they will, A, get shit done. B, they'll make their own processes, which you might have built and they were not right in the future, and they'll improve collaboration. They'll also hold the team to a higher benchmark, right? So don't worry about processes. Always start with right people. Let's talk about hiring. It is absolutely an investment. It is time-consuming, but it is absolutely the right investment to make. It pays back. Just bear with me. I'll explain how. So first thing, do invest time into it. When I was hiring early teams, I would always do personal outreaches myself, even if it took my personal time. I'm not proud of saying it, but it's the right thing to invest into. Even today, when we're like 3,000, 4,000 plus people, despite our talent partner teams being amazing, I still do for critical roles outreaches myself. I'll meet people. I'll make sure they understand what the company is about. I'll make sure they understand what we're about, because these are people who are going to take your company to the next level. You're going to trust them with a large part of the business or a large part of what you're doing. You want to make sure they're as less failures as important. So if it takes your personal time, spend time on it. It's the most important thing you'll have to do. Number two, consistency of process. You want to make sure, so at Bolt, we have this very standard process where 3 kind of people interview. You want to make sure the differences between people are as minimized as possible. So if interviewer A interviews what interviewer B does and what C does, they have the same scorecard. So it's very clear on what we're recruiting as for qualities, what do we value as a company, what do we want in the team. Everyone has a very clear idea of it. And then everyone has a very clear idea of what's good, what's bad, what's excellent. So when they score people, more often than not, it should be very similar. Because we're human, and humans do make mistakes, and we're going to have good days and bad days, every now and then, we will have a day where scores are different. So when that happens, you just congregate as a group, discuss why scores are different. Sometimes you recalibrate. Sometimes you realize that maybe the interview you had a bad day, and it's OK. But you want to make sure there's a consistent process. If it works, it should keep on working, no matter if you have 3 people interviewing or later down the line if you have 50 people interviewing. Number 3, on recruitment or hiring, dropping quality. Everyone's been there. You have a role that's open for 6 to 12 months. You're starting to panic. You're not able to find the right person. The first thought you're going to have is, screw it. We didn't find the perfect person, but there is a person who might make it if we put like 6 to 9 months into them. If you're in an early stage or somewhere between 1 to 100 or 1 to 10, don't do that. It's going to cost you more. 1, realize your own limits. So if you get somebody who needs to be onboarded and needs to have effort put into, you're not going to get someone who comes in and kicks off and takes things from your plate, but somebody who's going to come in and actually add more work to you. Know your limits. Everyone's had that moment that, I can coach them. I can put in like 2 more hours. You can't. You're gonna suffer. The company's going to suffer. Your team is going to suffer. Later down the line, when you're a mature team, when you've got maturity and a proper team and all of that, start taking risks. Make sure that the people are supported. But early stage, do not do that. This is like a personal pet peeve of mine as well, and I want to make sure like everyone recognizes how Bolt hires a little bit as well. Look, CV and experiences are a piece of paper. Today, I can stand here and tell you, since I've joined Bolt, we've 4x'd in revenue. Absolutely true. But how much did I contribute? You don't know. Did I do anything? Who knows, right? But I could put it on a CV and it holds up. So CVs and experiences are a filter. Like they help you understand what complex processes they've worked in, what complex companies they've worked in, but it is not what you should prioritize. It's easy to be muddled, it's easy to confuse, or it's easy to be valued higher than it should be. We focus at talent. Talent should always outshine where you worked or what your title was. Easy process. When we're recruiting, we'll give a home task, helps us understand how the candidate thinks, helps us understand where their talent lies, how much they can solve, how much we can rely on them. And even when we do interviews, which are standard, we'll get to know you a little bit, We'll tell you a little bit about ourselves, we'll discuss the homework you've done, and then we'll do an on-spot case study because we want to see how you do when you're provided with information, and that is where talent shines in. So talent over experiences. You've hired the right team, congratulations. How do you retain them now? Step one of retaining people, onboard them well, set them up for success. It takes effort, it pays 10x back. Whenever I onboard somebody or anyone else at Bolt onboard somebody or a direct report of theirs, we'll put out a doc, which is usually like 6 to 7 pages of an onboarding doc. What should it have? It should have context of the team, so how their team was, where they're performing, where their gaps, what is working, what is not working, context of the company, where we are, where we want to go, how this person will enable us, the person's goals, so what should they be looking at, what values they should be adding, how should they be contributing to the company, a massive list of stakeholders, people who can onboard them, provide them context on the company and the context on the problems they're going to solve, and a short-term focus area. Why a short-term focus area? Anyone who comes into a new company will always have this imposter syndrome at some point, usually around 3rd or 4th month, that am I contributing? Am I doing enough? Am I a good employee? You're going to make sure the short-term focus area allows them to start contributing as soon as possible and starts letting them add value as well. Personally, I also do daily check-ins for my direct reports for 2 weeks, where I'll give them 45 minutes to an hour. I want to make sure I'm solving their problems, helping them onboard, because the more I put in the start, the less I have to put in later, and the more the person can contribute faster. So the entire goal of onboarding is making sure an employee contributes ASAP. You run onboarding, you have a team that's running, how do you manage their performance? How do you make sure they keep scaling? Or if you have to part ways, how do you part ways as well? So we do a holistic 360 feedback. At minimum, you should do it once a year. If possible, time permits, do it twice a year, once every 6 months, right? It is a time-consuming thing. So you reach out to all the stakeholders, you reach out to the team, you reach out to peers, you try to get feedback on the employee, you combine it with what you know. It's like being a little bit like Sherlock Holmes, trying to find patterns of problems that exist. And then you need to make sure that you're not just pointing out problems. It's your job to help that employee fix those problems. It's your job to tell them, oh, here is what I would do, here is what you're doing well, so you should do more of it, here is what's not working, and you should fix it. I, and everyone else at Bolt as well, we write our 360s on a written doc. The largest one I've written is 9 pages, takes about 3 to 4 hours. Why is it written? You want to send it to an employee upfront, you want them to digest it, then you want to sit with them and discuss it. Why is written, again, better than verbal feedback? Verbal feedback gets forgotten. You don't remember everything. Written feedback you can always refer to in 2 months, in a month, and the employee can also comment on it. Oh, okay, I get what you're saying, I completely understand it, and they can keep referring to it. So written feedback, holistic feedback, absolutely important. We've all had this. We hired somebody who was supposed to be perfect, and then they didn't make it. It's soul-crushing, but it's also normal. If you take the law of averages a little bit, 2 out of 10 people or 20% of people will not make it. Do not lose sleep. It is what it is, right? Why don't they make it? I don't know, not the right fit, someone slipped through the process, someone came to Estonia, did not like it here, did not realize it was minus 17, their partner doesn't like it, whatever, right? If things are not working, move fast. It's easy for you, it's easy for your team, it's easy for the employee as well, because if you let it stay, non-performers will bring down the performance of rest of the team as well. They'll ruin the vibe, they'll ruin the performance. So here, you want to take quick action as possible. And then this is like the last bit of my presentation. It is a bit heartbreaking, so I'll go through this a little slow, right? You started as a 0 to 1. You have an OG team that built you to a 100x. Ideally, in an ideal world, everyone that started the company with you should be there with you when you're 10x or 100x or whatever, right? Like when you've made it as an organization. Unfortunately, as we've seen, the roles of a product team at every stage is very different. So not everyone will make it. Multiple reasons. Not everyone likes the new roles as well. Some people just love 0 to 1s. They love the hustle. They love the drive. They don't like focusing on smaller metrics. They want to focus on the entire journey. Some people just don't want a larger company. Some people, even if they want to, will not scale up. The company is scaling faster than they can. They can't reinvent themselves so many times. In my opinion, 30 to 40% people make it, and that's a bit of a stretch goal. I'm being nice here. In my personal experience, 30 was a high mark, but it is heartbreaking, but it is also quite normal. it's also, the heartbreaking aspect is these are the people that have gone to, have gone to battle with you. They've given long hours. They've sweated it out. They are part of the reason why you are as a company where you are right now. So make it worth their while. Sit them down, explain to them, look, this is not working. Here are the things you can do. Give them a chance. Let them see if they evolve. If they don't, give them a hug. Tell them you love them. And then figure out how you can offboard them, but also make it worth their while. They've given you their sweat, blood, and tears, and their soul. So, it's important to treat them with respect. I have a couple of minutes left. I want to make sure if there are any questions that we can take them. And thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. We do have, indeed, time to take questions. So let's ask. Who wants to go first? Yes, this lady right down on the stairs.
Hello. Yeah, very interesting presentation, and thank you for that. And my question will be about burnout. Like, it sounds super interesting, and some people can make it, some people cannot.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you help them to find the balance and not to burn out?
Fun one. Look, I'll answer it in two parts. One, I'll talk about myself, right? Because I've had burnout. Just going to be honest. Then I'll talk about how I try to manage it for others. And then I'm going to talk about what works and sometimes what doesn't work, right? So let's talk about me. As I said, it's my favorite topic, so we're back again. I think when it happened for me, I didn't realize it, right? Just because I'm the kind of person who, I have ADHD, so, if it's not obvious, it will become at some point if you talk to me. So for me, I got a lot of dopamine or potential dopamine for, I'm contributing so much. I can do more hours. It's so much fun. I'm contributing. The company is growing. Why wouldn't you feel nice? So much impact. That's what you're supposed to do as a product manager. You start eating time into your personal life as well. And I would personally say it would have happened a lot faster for me. I have an incredible wife who is brutal and kind of keeps me honest. So she started pointing out things for me. But when I realized it was a bit too late, and unfortunately, I always thought I had it under control. I was like, oh yeah, I know what burnout is. I've got it under control. But it's like one of those things that till you haven't experienced it, you really need someone to tell you what it is. And yeah, so it sucked. But I moved on to other things. Now I'm at Bolt, so I keep it in check. How do I help others keep it in check? Look, once you've witnessed it, you can start spotting signs for it. You want to make sure, when I see my team responding to messages after a certain point, I normally start calling them out. I'll sit them down and say, look, it's great, but this comes at a cost. You need to realize that this comes at a cost. It's also sometimes you will ask your employees to go above and beyond. I don't know, we're planning a quarterly roadmap or we're doing the annual budget. It does take time. Then we don't have HR here, right, from Bolt. Just say no, right? So then I kind of do what, I don't know if it's the right thing to say or not, but if people took care of me, I take care of them, right? You put in extra hours, I'm going to come and tell the team, congratulations, thank you for working overtime. There's a holiday on the house, you don't need to apply, just go, right? It's your job as a manager to make sure you're optimizing, sure, for a little bit short term as well, but if you start losing people, you're supposed to optimize for the long run as well. So, and this is going to sound really shitty, but the only good way to kind of figure out how to stop people from burnout is if you've had it yourself, because you can kind of see every sign. And then you need to go brutal and tell people, stop. No, I'm not going to respond. I'm going to, I've actually had to tell someone on my team that you've gone on a vacation is a vacation. If I see you online, if I see you responding, I'm going to go to IT and I'm going to make sure you're disconnected for 2 weeks. And I did, and it works, right? People should be able to switch off. But yeah, that's how I would do it. I don't know if that answered everything you wanted.
Well, thank you. Unfortunately, we don't have any time to take any more questions, but if you run into Ali, can I just...
Juju.
If you run into Juju, then you can, I'm sure, ask him questions directly, and we will make sure to network with you later.
Yeah.
And let's send him off with a big applause.
Thank you so much.